Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Vynora Effect. I'm Haleigh Overseth of Frankie's Podcast Network, here to host with Alecia Maximo of Vynora, ruler
Hello,
goddess of the
everyone.
Vynora Effect.
Thank you. All right,
We're
fam. Well,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you jump in. We're just both so excited for our guest today. I'll let you jump
Yes,
in and introduce Anthony Adkins for us.
sounds good. Yes, it's been a long time coming. Anthony and I definitely vibe very well together. But anyways, yes. So all right, fam. So today's episode is one you're going to want to take notes on, or at least, very least, feeling deeply inspired by. I'm joined by none other than Anthony Adkins. How are you, man?
Excellent, excellent, Alicia. Haleigh, thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, in your experience, just giving the audience a little background about Anthony, he's a powerhouse in the world of global business, ecosystem development, and revenue growth. He's the CEO of the NextGen Consulting, a strategic mind who's worked with Fortune 500 giants, distributors, startups alike to spark serious momentum, where we are taking millions in revenue, realignment of teams, and transforming leadership from the inside out. So, Anthony, as far as what I call a market maker, someone who doesn't respond to just trends but creates them, which of course we have in common, right? So
Right.
love that, and restructuring entire teams for record breaking results, and brings a unique blend of tech savvy brilliance and soulful purpose driven strategy. So let's dive right in. So my first question for you: how did you get started from being in high school to college to being a really high level business strategist and an entrepreneur like yourself?
Oh, great first question. How much do you have? Right.
Well, you can start small. You don't have to go like from the whole journey of experiencing from high school to
Yeah.
college to now. So start where you want to start, from your story or your journey from that
Yeah.
beginning to coming into this leader role and your experience in global business, to how you got started, or where did that path lead you?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And it is important to understand some of that history and that
Mhm.
backdrop, because, mine is not a storied experience. I mean, it's one based upon resilience. It's the one based upon never giving up. It's the one based upon a hustle. I used to have a saying, you can't stop me, but you can only hope to contain me,
That's right.
in terms of a lot of that athleticism, that I had grown up with. I mean, born and raised in Chicago, um, two parents who really didn't love each other, right?
Oh, well,
Oh
that's
yeah,
modern family story, right?
well,
Right.
it is, but you have the strong commitment of an amazing mother, right? Amazing mom. But what they did, they worked hard. I mean, both my parents were dropouts out of high school. My dad was a pipe fitter welder. My mom was a beautician and bus driver. It was one of those things that, when you look at the trajectory of, my life, if you were to play that out, it would have ended up somewhere different, you know. And if I would have stayed on that track of, blue collar, lower middle class Chicago, eventually Chicago suburb, and go from there. But athletics really propelled me into thinking differently, to designing, to tapping into different parts of my for the sake of a better word, what was my makeup? What my makeup was, my DNA, and the discovery of that particular, um, greatness that I had.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go to college. Nobody in either side of my family wanted to go to school. Never went to school. It was either a trade school or whatever it was. So I had something different. I wanted something better. I wanted to move on, and I knew that college was the route for me. University was. So, and I knew that no one had. We didn't have the money, right? So I knew that I had to use, or should use, my talent to advance my life. And so that was the real heavy focus into, not only did I love the game, my two main sports were football and hockey, very, I guess, violent sports, you would say.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right. But I'm a nice guy, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'll keep this brief because I'm sure we'll touch on it a little later as well, on how it shaped me, for me. But I mean, the physical, mental, the emotional, the intellectual, spiritual, all was a part of that developmental path and that road. I knew growing up, I definitely had a different worldview. When you're kids and someone asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yes.
Remember that infamous question?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd hear, oh, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be
A doctor, a lawyer, an
lawyer.
astronaut.
I want to be the first woman president. That was my
Right.
whole
Yes,
dream.
I love that one, Haleigh.
Right?
Right. I like that too. And so mine was an iron worker. I wanted to be an iron worker. Fantastic Four was a thing in terms of comic books, right? Back then.
Yes.
The Thing was his name. Remember the block guy?
Yes.
I remember what?
Yeah, he used his strength as his superpower.
Yeah.
And I represented, or I connected that dot to ironworkers because of the danger, the strength, the everything about what they did in building infrastructure and love. But what kid wants to be an ironworker?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but you associated it to a superhero, which is
really
amazing.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So
And that's very interesting.
I tipped my hat to the ironworkers, right? But understanding and knowing that and how it developed, ultimately, when I entered into college, I was very blessed with being honored by Augustana University with a football scholarship. Yeah, go Vikings!
And go Vikings! I love that you went to a South Dakota school. That really did make me happy that we can relate on that level. He understands the Dakota lands that I come from. That's awesome.
Right. Shout out to South Dakota.
Shout out to Augustana and South Dakota. I know. I've traversed that state quite a few times. But so what that did for me is it put me in a world, and like I said, I'm very blessed and honored that the school saw that talent in me, but also was interested in my educational development as well. It wasn't just about athletics. As you know, Augustana is a very educationally driven, high-end school, accredited in many different areas. So not only was I experiencing athletics at that time, the NCC conference, but I was experiencing a great education through, Augustana and the faculty and the staff and the professors, of course, at the school. So in that discovery, what can I say? What was discovered about my personality was that I was very willing to make change, very willing to adjust. My beginning of my senior year, right? Because I was injured. I redshirted, which means you have 5 years to play for, right? So I get this injury occurred, blew out my knee the first game of the season of what was what was considered my junior year. Okay. So I missed the season, but I got to repeat that season the following year. Right. It's called the redshirt year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I repeated my junior year athletically, but technically I was a fourth year senior. Right. So I was going into my senior year, but it was my junior year of athletics, right? Consider that. What that meant to me, as I was taking classes, I was all over the place. Yeah, you guys.
Well, of course, like high school, it's like sports,
Yeah,
school. Where do I go? What college am I going to? What, class am I going to study in? What do I want to get a degree in? It's a lot of questions when you're a teenager, especially in your generation, of course. There's only a whole bunch, like there's only a couple options, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, and I do want to get into your how you get into your business life, but
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking just like as your personality and your development when it comes
Mhm.
to, I'm already kind of fascinated because like obviously you have to have some kind of something inborn in you, right? That
Mhm.
divine spark that says, I know I can do bigger, better things than where I came from and what was expected of me. And so maybe as you're kind of moving into this, like the business elements of things and from college here, can you kind of like delve into that? How does that affect you, your personality, and how you perceive what you're capable of doing when you have an injury like that? Like you're on a scholarship, you're there at school for this scholarship, and how do you deal with the potential kind of stress or anxiety of that idea of like, I have this injury, what if I lose my scholarship if I can't play
Mhm.
anymore?
Mhm.
Right. And like that's an adversity that you already have to overcome when you're already doing something that's outside of what was
Mhm.
expected of you from childhood and where you came from.
Right, right. Yeah, it was my parents were very uninvolved. They provided no direction, in terms of, sort of that, hey, let's sit down, let's assess, let's, go through this, and this is what we believe your strengths. So I had there's none of that shit.
Yeah.
All right, didn't mean to
Oh
say
no, you're good.
We
Like,
get
listen,
it.
we're all adults, and also like I think there's a lot
We
of people out there,
understand.
Okay.
yeah, who resonate
Yeah.
with that. Like sometimes you don't have your parents do
Right.
the best they can, but they don't
They
always
did.
have the guidance that you need from where you're
Yeah,
trying to go.
they
Right.
really did. They taught me an amazing work ethic, from that standpoint. And so that's what you're known as, even on the playing field or on the
Mhm.
ice, what have you. I worked hard. So in this element of school and in this element of education, um, in high school, I was drawn to architecture, right?
Mm.
But
Okay.
I hated the math.
Sure.
Yeah. Not fun.
Not fun, but also very crucial to have any type,
Hmm.
success in that field.
Yeah.
Um, I loved history, right? I loved the aspect of speech, like giving speeches, but also what I was really starting to connect to was marketing.
Mm.
Now, enter in college, and I moved into sort of a computer aided design, computer aided manufacturing element back then, and then which was heavy in computer programming. Not not fun for me. Like, it was drudgery, and of course,
Mm.
you take a look at, and I'm gonna date myself a little bit here, but our computer program was punch cards.
Oh, wow.
No, I know what you're talking
You know
about,
what I'm
though.
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Stacks
Yep.
and stacks of punch cards that you kept them together with a rubber band,
Hmm.
Mm.
and getting them in order, and if you drop those things or they went all over the place and went out of order, well, guess what? Program's not going to work, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
So not only are you protecting with your life those stacks so nobody dumps them right on you,
Right.
but it was very cumbersome. So I got to see the early days of that, that computer element or
Yeah.
programming element and those sorts of things. Classes like Fortran and Cobalt and Basic and you
Hmm.
know those sorts of things. And it was developing. And of course, math had to come along with it.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, I
It's.
can't do this. I
Hmm.
literally cannot do this. I hate accounting. I hate math. Science. I hate this programming crap, right?
And I think it's so funny because you sound like me in high school. Keep going.
Right? Like there's probably I think there's a lot of people. Oh
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I'm
I would
sure there's a
say,
lot of people out there who
right.
are
I
like,
would say,
Yeah.
right. My favorite classes were gym and art class. And I would say English because I love like Romeo and Juliet and Poseidon and like all the other
Oh,
like literature or history literature that we read or wrote book reports
mm.
on. But other than that, yeah, all those other subjects, I agree with you.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And in fact, creative writing really had stood out for
Mhm,
me. My only problem with writing was at that particular time, I wrote the way I talked,
mhm.
right? So it was very fragmented.
Right,
So I used
exactly.
to get my papers back with the red circle frag,
Yeah.
Yeah.
awkward. If I see red frag, reg awkward written anywhere, I I break out in
You
cold.
get like
Yeah.
PTSD, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Right, right, right. Well, that's very interesting to hear part of your story where you like,
Oh
as
yeah.
far as Haley and ours generation, like we grew up with technology or like grew up with like computers and when cell phones were being made, but you were there from like the very beginning. So that's very intriguing to hear how you're able to keep that momentum or keep that type of mindset of like, this is going to work out for me someday. Maybe not now, like we don't have a laptop sitting in front of you during that time period, but you had that type of mentality of like, this is going to be bigger than itself. The
Mm,
accounting, the mathematics is all going to be generated on a computer one day or in a technology format. And look at us now, right? If we had chat when
what-
we were growing up in high school or college, think about how many of course we have to work much harder as like reading books and actually writing book reports and on the computer, but the point I'm trying to make is that for your journey, it's like you were able to shift in those different time zones into that type of technology culture, but keep up with the times. So it's very fascinating. Anything else that you want to add as far as like from the transition from college into what was your first like business venture? Was it more on the architecture side, on the global business side, or where did your first business idea come from and how did you start it or thought of the idea?
Yeah, this is perfect in terms of the development of our conversation.
Mhm,
Because in that senior year, in that fourth year, I had 3 classes back to back when I
mhm.
started that semester. I had thermodynamic physics. I had
That sounds fascinating and exciting, but very complicated.
but I had Fortran, right? Computer programming, and then I
Mhm.
had
Mhm.
I had linear algebra.
Oh,
So, so you were really heavy into the ones that were just not for you.
yeah, I like it. I like the risk. Yes,
Yeah,
Anthony.
You can see me
love it.
squirming in my seat right now.
He's getting flashbacks, guys.
Yeah, like
You're
we're sorry.
witnessing it real
We'll
time.
send some nice, relaxing vibes to you to calm it back down again. It'll be
Oh
okay.
man. So
Good deep breaths. There you go. Bringing it back to
Relax.
the
There you
center.
go.
There you go.
so the first class of the first semester, right? First class, sitting in the class, prof comes in, writes this is physics, right? Writes this crazy problem on the board, puts the chalk down, and walks out and goes, "Have it resolved by the end of the class." Walks out.
Mm.
I looked around.
I want to get paid for that kind of work. Like, here's
Yeah,
what I
right.
need you to do, and I'm out. Like,
So I packed up my books, went down to my counselor and go, dropping this thing.
Yeah,
not
not
this one's
doing
not for
this.
me.
He's
It's
like,
not the vibe.
okay, drop it. Next class, Fortran. Sitting in the class, same thing. I go, I'm out.
Mm.
Walk
Right.
down to my counselor's office. He goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm dropping this thing.
This one's
Drop
not
my
working.
Drop my Fortran class. Third class, want to drop linear algebra? He goes, no, that's really going to hurt you. And I go, I don't care.
Well, it's not going to help me if I'm in there and I don't like it.
So at that moment, this is gonna be the transition of how I got into and kind of projected me forward. Is we sat there after I dropped my third class, and he goes, "What are we gonna do?" And I go, "That's my question to you: is what can I do? Because this isn't." He goes, "Well, what do you like?" I said, business in terms of marketing. I love the idea of information systems, right? Information systems and those sorts of things, which the major today would be called business information systems. Back then, it wasn't called that. However, we sat there and we formulated and we put together from all my classwork and everything in my study and mapped out a path forward that was called an interdepartmental major. It had 3 minors, all interconnected, to create a major, which today would be marketing and BIS, marketing and information systems. So it consisted of business, marketing, computer science, and math. I had to finish out the math thing.
Yeah.
So with that, when I started really diving into, because I had 5 years of college, my last year, I was putting everything together, right? Finishing out, spotting certain classes and those sorts of things. And my marketing prof was absolutely amazing, Professor Carson. And that was what I wanted to do. I want to come out. I want to be in this whole idea of creation, connection, storytelling, association, from that standpoint, as I'm defining it now, as looking back on it, back then. So during that time, the advice that I received, the opportunity went away. So I wasn't able to go pro football. So I went back to playing hockey. So what happened was when I graduated, I missed my graduation. I didn't go to attend my graduation, and I didn't attend my final marketing final. My prof, I did so well in the class that he's like, because I had an interview with AT&T.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Back in Chicago, right? That I had to sell like clothes, cassette tapes. I had to sell everything for gas money to get back. So this is like my world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So I had to sell my favorite coat.
Oh.
But anyway, yeah, that's right. So made it back, interviewed. They asked me back for another interview. And I was an anomaly. They called me an anomaly. And it was pretty interesting. It's like, so anyway, I ended up getting hired by AT&T Global. Okay. Making probably $10,000 at that time in 1988. $10,000 a year more than what the average college graduate was earning.
Very nice. Okay.
Because of that position and where I was, and AT&T was going through a lot of interesting changes at the time, which opened up what they called the new hire mode. So they were hiring a lot of college students in all areas of the country. And so I was very fortunate. I got brought on by the Quaker Oats global account team. And my hiring manager, Steve Nolan, loved the guy. He sat me down after he hired me. We're sitting in there starting to map out my training and stuff like that. He looks at me and just goes, "I don't know what it was about you. I don't know what it was about you. You didn't have great grades. You didn't have great education. I mean, you went to a great school. Your dad, your mom is not a senator, right? You're not coming from pedigree.
Right.
You're not coming from a pedigree." Because at that time in that arena, AT&T was very
It's huge. Yes.
Oh, like
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
dad is the
Ivy
senator of
League.
Indiana.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. To all our listeners out there, I would say AT&T Global back in the day was like, I would say Apple now, kind of, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it
Yeah.
was
Mhm.
the dominant carrier.
Mhm.
It was the infrastructure of the federal government. It was the
Yeah.
infrastructure of the Department of Defense. I mean, it was the infrastructure.
Right.
Mhm.
So that started my journey. But guess what? It was in sales.
Right. So you notice
Mhm.
that you have the
Way,
charisma and then
yeah,
you went for it.
yeah.
Mhm.
And everyone told me the pathway to marketing was through sales, which was a lie. And
Mm.
thus started, that's where I picked up how many years later needing to write this book that I just finished.
Mhm.
Right. So in my career, my career was, it was bananas. I mean, I started out um, in an amazing environment. I knew nothing about telecom.
Mhm.
I knew nothing about 4E switching, the Bell companies, or Erlang
Mhm.
B, the algorithms,
Right.
measurements of blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But what I did is I loved the strategy. I love the consulting side of it. I love the resource and the team environment that was created. Um, I mean, having the opportunity as a young professional to sit in a boardroom filled with the executives of Quaker Oats, right? Which
It's a big deal.
Gatorade,
Yeah.
Fisher Price Toys was a part of.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Ghirardelli chocolate, Golden
Mhm.
Grain. I mean, Gatorade, Michael Jordan,
Yeah, I was
Chicago.
gonna say, yeah, big names for
Yeah.
exactly where you were.
But it was big.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
That's
was huge.
amazing.
But what we utilized and what I found was how can, and I'm going to use current day terminology
Mhm.
to explain this. How can communications platforms, right,
Mhm.
facilitate brand development?
Right.
So you were doing social media before social media was cool.
Basically, yes. You're trying to market towards the people and the product. That's very intriguing. I'm very interested into hearing more because
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
I mean,
you were there at like the prime time before all the
oh,
social media marketing and AI stuff and people being authentic, but they're just really trying to sell a product.
Mhm.
That's very interesting. So like what led you so after you went through that like career transition and you were in those boardrooms and meeting all these having access to like all these opportunities, what moved you to start your own company? Was it like a couple of years later or did you fulfill and build your own team?
what happened was I was thinking,
Hmm.
as the people who were giving me advice said, the pathway to marketing is through sales.
Hmm.
Wrong, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time. So I started really leaning into the marketing side of things. Right.
Hmm.
I had the opportunity when I was with AT&T to work with the Gatorade brand, the VP of marketing at all of Quaker Oats.
Right.
And I was loving that. So 3 years down the road, I was tapping on the marketing's door at AT&T, looking for internal opportunities, and got shut down every single time. You don't have any marketing experience. I'm like,
Right.
what?
Yeah, but I'm talking to all the people who have all the experience. What do you want from
Right.
me? I have
Exactly.
charisma and relationships I've built. What else do you need?
Right.
Well, we're the platform for
Yeah.
Mhm.
for marketing to actually occur through
Hmm.
communication, which you need to
Mhm.
market.
Right. Right.
Da, 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 da. And so thus began the brutal journey of trying to make a move into what I loved. And now I wanted to combine that with athletics or sports. So sports marketing, which now you can get a degree in, by the way.
Yeah.
And of course, there was no sports marketing degree. And I worked hard at working to apply to that, to Reebok, Seattle Seahawks, I don't even like soccer, but I was applying for like the soccer leagues, something,
Right.
get me back into the game. I need
Yeah.
Right. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
I'm ready
Right.
to go. And
Yeah.
I think I had a distinct advantage that I'll still tout today is I'm not a sports fan. I'm not a fan. I don't give a crap whose stats are what. I don't give a crap where they went to school. I don't give a crap what high school record they broke. I don't care who, if they, drink hydrogenated water on Tuesdays and, back that with, I don't care. But what I do care about is what the game can do to an individual, and how it can facilitate growth, greatness, the understanding of discipline, of self-discipline, of all that stuff. Okay. So now I'm getting shut down. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So on a plane ride from Chicago to Atlanta, Georgia, I picked up, I think it was an Inc. magazine. And I saw this thing, it was called Puck Masters, right? Puck Masters.
Hockey related?
Hockey training, yeah. So it was a hockey training franchise that utilized something called glice. It wasn't on ice. It was on plastic. That had a glide factor of about 98%. So when you got on that plastic, or when you got on that glice, it was slick through a topping, a coating that they had used, and it automatically created resistance training, but it helped do one-on-one training with hockey players.
Okay.
So because renting out real ice or having that personal one-on-one stuff, it was impossible because number one, there's usually not enough ice around.
Right.
There are not enough good coaching elements to be able to I mean, everything was against it. So it was fitting a pretty interesting niche. So I was like, there it is. This is my way in. I'm going to have to create it myself. So I went after it, blew up, absolutely blew up. Out of it, I created my company called Icon Sportsnet. Now, think about this for a second. Icon Sportsnet was the first sports net. Now you have Comcast Sportsnet, you have Fox Sportsnet, you have everything Sportsnet. 1999, I had Icon Sportsnet.
What, Anthony? How come more people don't know about this?
I know, he went to school in South Dakota, so he's like in my neck of the woods, but he's doing all these amazing things.
Does he ride a Harley? No. So we're not going to help you.
No, that's fine if you don't ride a Harley. I just love hearing the history and the story, and then now it's like hearing that you were part of the first sports like network channel from your generation is fascinating. I think from the story and the momentum that you're building up to this, it's like you took all of that, your experience, and then this is what you have accomplished. But it's like you have to experience what you need to experience to get there. And I feel like all of us have that in common. Just taking a little left turn here. So Haleigh and I, what we have in common, we're really well at leading humans. We're very people. We love talking to people and conversating. But I would say the bridge that we're trying to get our gap would be like trying to get leading the humans and managing systems. So speaking systems of, I would say mathematics, accounting, even the AI systems and marketing systems and things like that. So my question to you to follow up on the first business model that you stated there, in your experience building the different ecosystems with like high performance teams, especially in the marketing realm and including in sports, what have you learned about like leading humans and not just managing the systems? Because I'm assuming back in the day, like there were systems in place, but you physically had to put yourself in front of people or humans and do the sales and do the marketing and lead the humans to the water. So yeah, what have you learned about working with people, but having those people create like a butterfly effect of this is what I'm working on, come join me, and not just, having them or managing a system or a computer system or an accounting system?
Yeah. Again, a great developmental question, because, sitting in with companies that were in technology, right? I saw the birth of Netscape, right?
Oh, wow.
Imagine when people were excited talking about 56 kilobit speeds.
Oh, yeah. The things that we would not settle for now, right?
Right.
It's not even a half of a word file, right?
Mhm.
But what was happening was the development and training that I had at AT&T from a very, very young age. I already knew how good the personal connection was, and I already understood and knew the value of resources, team resources. So you worked together, you sold together, everything was a collective that always upheld the brand, because AT&T, we learned very early that price was not one of our strengths. So eliminate the we're going to sell on price game completely. So everything was value driven, everything was differentiation driven. And a lot of times the differentiation resided in the team and you personally, how you were connecting, where you were connecting, bringing experience in and threading it. Okay. So as technology is being developed over here, the personal side of it is being developed at a pace that was in parallel to the technology, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So as we're diving in deep and ripping apart our personalities through all types of testing methodologies, the technology is developing. So automatically, for me, it always connected.
Mhm.
Okay. When the internet blew up the first time in 2000, right? 2001, it was psychotic how much money was being thrown at the internet space.
Yes.
When the website angryman.com, okay, the yellow smiley face, right?
Yes.
Yes. The emoji.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
yellow smiley face. Yeah, it's iconic, right? Well, this was a red angry face. The website was called angryman.com. In their launch, they had banners in New York City, down Times Square, right? Banners of angryman.com. And there was a website that was geared towards everybody venting anything that they wanted to. It was a venting.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. They raised like $20 million. I'm like,
Wow.
Well, that's a good
I mean,
marketing plan.
well, listen, yeah. I mean, anger and rage is a passionate sort in and of itself. And so, yeah, I guess that's one angle that you can take on to kind of generate some buzz.
so and this is interesting because everything was about unique visitors, clicks. Everything was about that big. And at that time, when I launched Icon Sportsnet, I said, no, pay attention to this website over here called iVillage. If you remember iVillage.
It's ringing a bell a little bit, but
Right.
remind us.
It's a great case study. Number one, iVillage was that whole concept around, and it was basically women developed about the community. It was this community, meaning they were trying to make the internet or get back to community because the internet was going like this, like it was just it was getting smaller.
Right.
So iVillage was understanding that and moving it into the smaller environment, right? Because the internet technology has to be one-on-one.
Yeah.
Everything needs to get down to one-on-one. If you're not moving into a one-to-one engagement, right, then you're losing it. You're not, your endpoint, your end game is not correct, as I found as we were developing. So that's where Icon Sportsnet was getting. It was about taking training the amateur athlete to help them understand and through athletics pursue greatness in life, right? And always moving them down to a one-on-one relationship and one-on-one coaching and one-on-one mentorship. So you start out as a bigger community, but individual, village, community, where you're now in a one-on-one relationship or a one-on-one element where you're being considered and it's customized to you.
Right.
So, from that standpoint, this is where the connection and everything with both of you is serving me already so well, is because this is what it's about. You can talk AI till you are blue in the face, right?
Yep.
Right. I mean, everyone's AI, and they think that they're utilizing AI by just using ChatGPT. And
right. But there's so much more. There's so much more that we don't, well, in our current states we don't have access to yet, but there's, of course, we'll get into the conversation later, but globally they are taking AI and pushing it to its furthest ability, not just robots, but like it's just amazing all other things that they're creating. But to speak on that, Anthony, you're totally right, because me and Haleigh have this conversation a lot where AI is a great tool and a co-creator, but at the end of the day, no matter what business model, no matter what business you're doing with other people like to work with people at the end of the day. To be completely honest with you, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I find that we're transitioning into the creative culture of AI, which is amazing. Like when it comes to content, character development, even making movies or short stories, we have access to that now, which is really good for the creative and the artists to explore those opportunities. But for business and marketing and sales, where does AI take place in that, but not totally depending on that? I'm using it more as a co-creative tool of like launching an idea in your head about marketing, but not using AI to build a marketing strategy for you, because you're feeding it the information, but it's not really giving all the stuff back like a human would give you, like, the feedback that you need to hear, or what about this idea that would work with you and this marketing strategy. So that's very interesting that you pointed out that, because I love AI, I love technology, but I find it's like when it comes to business, people buy into the value of how do I relate to this person and why would I buy anything from them? What about them is making me, that's going to change my life or make my life better? Or how's a solution or product going to make me richer or make me better or make me prettier, especially in the woman in e-commerce business, which is huge, B2B, B2C business models, right? So I'm really interested to seeing the transition now into like AI and then in the human character form, as we're growing the technology, how far are we going to go? Robots are going to be in all of our houses doing our dishes. Okay, great. But to what extent? How is that going to affect families at dinners? How is that going to affect conversations when teenagers are on their phone? There's a lot of questions and a lot of things that people are not putting into effect when it comes to adopting AI into like their physical environment, but also into their structure, into their business structure, right? So for like my next question, yeah, they call you, as far as on your LinkedIn and in your website, the market maker. Love that line for you. It's a very powerful language, right? But energetically, like what do you feel you're really here to shift in business and culture? And I heard you speak about it a little bit before, but like what do you find your purpose here for that shift when it comes to business from your past, your present, and even for the future? And what do you see, like how do you see that shifting in the culture sense that we're expanding globally now, and a lot of Americans are leaving America just to live, a normal lifestyle?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and if I can just like piggyback a little bit on what she's saying here, like I
Yeah.
feel like this conversation parallels with this idea you're talking about of iVillage, right? Like
Mhm.
getting down to that one-to-one.
Yeah.
How do you sort of parallel what we're seeing in like the boom that is AI? Like you saw the boom of the internet when it first like
yeah.
got big. So, looking at sort of like that trend and how you have gone into incorporating the human element and getting down to that one-to-one relationship, like Alicia's saying, how do you currently incorporate that into what you do? The idea of, yes, there's this big broad thing, AI, that everyone's really like, it's the sexy thing right now, but
Right.
how do you get from that big idea, that community idea, and then down to that one-to-one relationship, the person to person, that interconnectivity that we're really looking for? Like, as much as you could have a robot doing your dishes, what's the point of the robot doing the dishes? It's so that you
Yeah.
have more time for your family, right? And like that's the thing that is where we're trying to get to. You want to utilize AI to have more human time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's interesting because the allure or the lie of technology that is going to make our lives easier, we already experience that technology has not made our lives easier at all. It
Right.
is. It has messed up where it takes us, because I forgot my password. It takes me 45 minutes to go through the cycle of authentication and all this other stuff in order to fucking change my password so that I can enter into the site that I got to do the work. Is not necessarily good. So we have to be careful because AI was, oh yeah, it's going to change our life for the better. Oh no, it's not. It's just like technology is not. I mean, it's complicating so much. Now, I speak to this from a business development, a strategy mind, a connection, human, and then I understand it from a hybrid perspective. Okay, we have to take a look at what parallel worlds exist. You have technology, and then you have the human creator, right? Who we created AI. Okay. So we should have a say in how AI functions. And that's where, if you take the iVillage model, if everything is going to get down to one on one, we should be able to drive towards a one to one relationship with technology. Okay. With machine
Right.
learning, machine language, you customize that machine language where now we utilize it as an extension, not as a replacement.
Hmm.
So, especially in the business development, the marketing, all those other things, you have AI detecting AI to cancel out AI the way traditional sales wants to function because everyone still tells, oh, 100 phone calls a day and blah, 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 and how many impressions do I
Mm,
have? And, I'm going to send out
yes.
all these emails. I'm going to have email do it. You know what? What AI will do is they will destroy your brand faster than a human can
Mhm.
based upon that. So we
Right.
have to be careful as the co-creators, right? As
Mhm.
our our footprint, right?
Mhm.
And our legacies and what we do and what we want to be and become, and allow that to influence and enhance us as an individual. So when you take the iVillage model, which I think was, just amazing, and you kind of apply some of that development into where we are today, we need to make sure that we drive it to a one-to-one relationship. We're made for community, for relationship.
Mhm.
And a lot of the individuals, and nothing against that, because they're brilliant savants and minds and engineering and programming and everything like that, because I want to be careful there. But it's being developed almost in a vacuum, where they're not extroverted elements, right? That they subscribe to. It's very introverted elements, where now all of a sudden you have us three extroverts, right?
Mhm.
Who desire and want and collaborate, and we know that we can expand thought and develop direction and leadership and how it all plays. So there's even that behavioral or that personality pressure, right? That the introverted element wants to take out the extroverted element so that they don't necessarily need to deal with people.
Right.
Mhm.
Give me a freaking machine to deal with. I don't want to deal with people because we're complicated, we're moody, we have personality, we have
Right. We're very unpredictable sometimes.
very
It's like,
unpredictable.
right.
Mhm.
Humans are humans.
Right? Just
Yeah.
like you guys triggered me very early on in the process.
Well, yeah, we did not mean to do
Right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a beautiful dance, and we need to be the ones who are orchestrating that dance, and together. I don't want to dance with a robot. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not something that I desire, and so, but it's important to understand in terms of overall development. Are we really developing people? Are we really paying attention? Are we validating the human experience? And in light of the onslaught of, gosh, dramatic things. Be careful. Remember the movie Minority Report?
I
Yes.
do.
And
Yes.
yes. And the Matrix. Just
Let
throwing
me.
that out
Mhm.
there.
Oh yeah, let
Mhm.
me. On another time, a moment. Let me tell you about a conversation that I had yesterday at another time about the future of the Minority Report.
Yeah.
Mhm. The possibilities of where we could go. Like, this is a little bit, I think, it's an important conversation to have, right? Like the value of technology is in our capacity as humans to utilize it in the right way, right? Like, because anything that you think of, because I mean, go back to the wheel being invented. That is a technology that we created that was for our benefit, right?
Right.
Like technology isn't just electronics, right?
Right.
So there's a need to understand, like you're saying, technology is an extension of our creative capacities as humans, our creative ability to find ways to facilitate the things that we do to build our communities, right? Like, why did you need a wheel? You needed to be able to move things. Why do you need to move things? People need stuff and it's not always where they are, right? If you're going to build a community, technology is meant to facilitate that
Right.
connection, that connectivity. And, sure, you do have a lot of people who are like, not people persons, right? Like they're not like we are. They don't want to, they are,
Right. Right.
and there's a value to technology for them, but you don't want to completely remove their capacity or connectivity to humans because it's not beneficial to them
Mm-mm.
for their growth, right?
Right.
So in what you do, and like in, coming to where you're like building next gen consulting, right? Like how do you, as you've seen this whole journey of technology evolve and utilizing it for business, how do you find ways to kind of ensure that what you're doing with your clients, with your teams, with the businesses you've helped develop, that
Yeah.
you maintain the human connectivity alongside technology and the things that it can do?
Yeah, there's and this was one of the reasons for my book, because my book is it's not highly researched, but it is highly experiential. I
Mhm.
lived it. It's like a personal manifesto. Has some, you know, you get
I
pretty
love it.
passionate there a little bit, right? Throwing it out there.
Mhm.
But I finished it. But the title of it is Broken by Design, Why Traditional Sales Failed, and the need, meaning the blueprint for what I call intelligent growth.
Mhm.
And so that's exactly where, we need to understand, um, ultimately what's important, what's our end goal, what's our end game. We want experience. We want to be entertained in a way,
Mhm.
Right.
without being beat up. In the sales profession, salespeople have been grossly undervalued, devalued, brutalized, blamed. I mean, it's over and over and over again. It's the only profession that isn't a degreed profession. You can't get a degree in sales.
Right.
What they'll say is get a degree in engineering, and then you can turn into a salesperson. And people are like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be a salesperson.
Right. They just want to be an engineer. That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Mhm.
But guess what? They can't get a job as an engineer, so then they're going to get a job in sales and hopefully work their way into engineering, or
Mhm.
Mhm.
that standpoint. So it's a brutal cycle. But yeah, I mean, technology is acknowledged. I mean, it's in our world. I saw AI being created from a business development perspective from the beginning. Robotic process automation. I mean, you're just scratching your head at that time and just going like, holy moly, what the heck
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
But it never talked about replacing this
Mhm.
Mhm.
that particular time. Now it's talking. Now we're talking about replacing this. You don't need a human to create a reel. You don't need a human to take images. Now you have fake, false
Mhm.
models.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean,
AI models.
AI model.
Yeah.
I mean, brutal to be single in this day and age. You don't know what's real or what's not.
Right.
Yes,
Especially on the internet.
absolutely. Mhm.
You know, so
Yeah.
we end up in places that we never anticipated. I've never anticipated being. I started out here in a very interesting way. My journey has been crazy, and a lot of experience. I mean, AT&T, CenturyLink, Lumen, Ericsson, Comcast. I've been in and worked with SAP. I work. It's kind of mind blowing, from that standpoint, and what I did and where I worked and who I worked with, and I love doing business in Latin America, for example. I mean, it's amazing, and how things sort of slow down in a sense.
Mhm.
Maybe not necessarily so advanced in terms of infrastructure and technology from that standpoint,
Mhm.
but guess what? The relationships in the community in that way is unbelievable. So they haven't,
Yeah.
still had the culture and the community, and Latin American. You have the Spanish, Portuguese, Italian.
Mhm.
Very
Mhm.
love the community driven environments, right?
Right.
And,
Mhm.
um, but you know, let's not allow AI or technology to take over. Let's keep our own human experience, and breed the joy. You can't have true pain without true love, and you can't have true love without true pain, because you won't know the difference.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
Great point. Great
Just
point on that, Anthony.
yeah,
I love that idea. And that's what we're striving for while we're creating our foundations, is giving people a space to be human, but also have a human experience with us, through us, and have these, like, in-depth conversations about what are we building now that's affecting or creating an impact for future generations, and of course
Mhm.
past generations, and how is that going to portray oh how is that going to portray
Mhm.
in the future with AI? And I use the Matrix as an example of the perfect movie, the very first one, not like the other sequels, where they go into like I call it a doc series of how the the technology, the AI, are using the humans as an energy source. So that movie is a perfect breakdown of like, if we keep going with this mentality of the AI replacing humans, it may happen or may not. How do we stay more in control, or kind of creating like a roof or a hover or a cap of what the AI is capable to do, and if it's going to either eventually educate itself to be smarter than humans and go create a loophole, what is that going to look like? And there's a lot of different movies that break that down on an individual basis, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future with technology, especially in the Western world, compared to places like Singapore, Japan, and more advanced countries like Dubai and Saudi, where they're really utilizing AI for the people and for their economy, more on the bias of how do we provide more resources? How do we provide more homes? How do we provide more infrastructure? Of course, in the middle of the desert, but they're using technology to build this idea out for their people and for their economy, and sustaining that type of lifestyle, that type of mindset for their culture and people that are living there. So I really like your idea on the aspect, because you're right. This is what matters here. This conversation, this communication, and what we are working towards, a very similar goal, very similar mission, is expanding on these different business models, the innovation, but also making sure that humans are able to show up in those spaces, either with technology or without technology, but also learning the best way it can work for you, especially with AI. I use chat all the time. Me and Haleigh use Claude and chat all the time, but more for the beginning process. And then we finish out with, of course, the human experience. So yeah, I love this conversation. We definitely have to have you back. Before we end, oh, sorry, go ahead, Haleigh.
No, I was gonna say, like, I think we could have you, like, Anthony. We got to have you back for our About Intelligence podcast.
Yes,
Exactly. Because it's a big conversation to have, also about how technology and AI is a mirror, very much so, for human culture, human like consciousness, where we are now. What AI is like, you're talking about the Matrix, and it's like, sure, that is something that is a possibility for where we could go, but it matters that humans are the ones training AI. Where is AI going to learn that kind of taking resources without having the empathy and compassion for where you're taking them from? They're going to learn that from humans. We're the ones training that technology. So it matters that we care about community. That's the only way you're going to get AI and technology. If it's going to go into the sentience and its own kind of learning capacities, it's going to learn from us. This is like nurturing a child, right?
Yeah.
We have to be the ones to show the way of being more on this one-to-one, empathetic, compassionate, recognizing every human individual as unique and valuable to the ecosystem that is humanity, right? So, and I know we are at an hour. We want to be mindful of your time, so I'm going to let Alecia wrap up with her last question here for you.
Yeah. Sorry, before I go with the last question, just wanted to point this out. I don't know if we've discussed this before, but what Haleigh and I are currently working on and what we're involved in are like clean energy solutions. And of course, with the planet and global warming, that is going to be a pillar in the next couple, I would say 5 to 10 years, where that's going to be the main focus. Yes, AI is a trend right now, but there's countries like Europe, Africa, and I think Japan, where they're turning waste into energy. They're turning garbage into electricity and, water solution, like clean water solution, like systems. So we are in a prime time here where we have the advantage to come together as humans, especially culture sets, international culture, and preserve our planet and use these types of clean energy solutions as investment for the people, for the economy. Without the humans, without infrastructure, how do we proceed? How do we live? How do we be our peaceful human beings that we are, right? So love to talk to you more about that process and what we're involved in with Ally Power. Shout out to Ally Power and Walt. We're doing amazing stuff over there with their hydrogen energy solutions. But we are really diving into now what we are building, not just for the present, but for the future and for our generations and for our past generations. And what is that going to look like for humans? And with the climate change and everything, what are we doing to either turn back the clock or to prevent our world from crumbling? I know Elon Musk is trying to get to Mars. I personally don't want to go to Mars. I'd rather stay on planet Earth. I don't know what your guys' plans are, but I want to stay here. So let's work together to figure out how we can stay on the planet Earth, right?
Yeah, I incarnated here because Earth is pretty banging. I love the oceans. I love the rivers. I love the trees. Let's do what we can to make sure those keep thriving, right?
Right, exactly. I understand what they're trying to do and like look at different planets. That's completely like understandable. But for us humans and us being in our world, it's like we kind of want to stay on our planet. I do want to go to space one day, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people do. But it's like, okay, what can we do as a society and humans and work together instead of doing war and being angry at each other and fighting all the time between whose country's whose and all this other drama. Where's the world peace? That's what we are here to do. That's what we're on the planet and this universe to do, is work together as humans, create an impact, and keep it moving, right? But that's my little Vynora Effect spiel. Sorry for going over an hour, but that's just my opinion about this whole conversation, business, and also with technology, is that we are all here with a different mission and a different journey, but it's not going to work if we don't work together. And that's where technology can help on the energy solution part and the building of the physicality of it, but we are the ones to put that together. So further than that, my last question for Anthony: if a younger version of you could sit with you right now, what would he need to hear?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. Well, I think that I would turn, and I mean, it would be a directive. Talking to my younger version, it would be instilling the belief that there was greatness. There's greatness in you, Anthony. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Don't let the environment, don't let the people, don't let your upbringing, don't let them speak that negativity into your world. I believe there's greatness in everyone, and that's been through my experience. And I believe it's up to us to help facilitate our areas and circles of influence to pull that greatness out, as opposed to beat it back down. And, let's start valuing each other's journey. Let's start paying attention. I love storytelling, and that's where even in my relational world, right? I mean, I drive context, and you can see I was starting to go off that rail, and I had to, going into this, because I want someone to understand context. I want to understand that I'm not here speaking about these things just randomly. That came from somewhere, right? It developed from somewhere. There was an experience that was tied to it that I connect back. So that was what I would say to the younger version of me: is there is greatness within you, and pursue it. And I had the opportunity to, with my children, who are now adult children, and each one of them, I spoke it into them. There is greatness within you. There is greatness. There is no shame. There is no shame in the struggle, right? There's not, champion, right? You're champ. You're, so at manifest it is what I'm saying. And knowing that I would have said the same thing to my younger self as I would have said to my children, is pretty encouraging to me. It's pretty encouraging to me. So
thank you.
Beautiful. I love that. I really, I do appreciate that, and it, again, it does seem that throughout your life and your journey, you've had that sort of spark within you that there is something more to me than what I'm told there is. And so, I want to just give you a pat on the back and a big high five and lots of love bubbles for being the kind of parent who would instill that in your kids, and for saying to your kids the things that your younger self would have benefited from hearing that you had to find on your own. And I think there's a lot of people now who definitely like resonate with that, but also might be people who kind of need that figure, that to hear that voice. And so it's important that you continue to do the communication and things that you do. It really is, because that energy is something a lot of people need, to be reminded that the greatness and the value is you. It's not necessarily the actions that you take. It's not necessarily what you can achieve based on the external world's view of you. You are the value. Believe that, and the good things will come. And so big high fives and just lots of love to you for having that in you.
Yeah, big high fives back to both of you, and Alecia. Seriously, it's like let's continue our journey of chasing sunrises.
Yes, I agree. Let's do it.
The birth of miraculous and the mysterious. So
yes, exactly.
We're gonna have to have you back for so many more podcasts if you're willing to go down that road with us. Yes. I love it. You have, so all the links for connecting with Anthony on LinkedIn and getting and finding him with NextGen Consulting are going to be in the description here. So definitely go connect with Anthony. Check out his NextGen Consulting. Is there anything you'd want to direct folks to other than those sites, or connecting with you, or things you have coming up that you want people to know about?
Well, there's definitely the publishing of the book. I mean, I'm going to self-publish. That's very excited. I've finalized the sort of my developmental editing. I'm working on the actual book cover now. So, excited about what that is. So stay tuned. We'll definitely probably launch it, publish it through Amazon. And I'll have that on my website, www. Geez, is that not right? It's NextGen Consulting LLC.com.
There we go.
I love it. We'll definitely have to have you back for the launching of your book so we can chat with you about it when it's ready for folks to read. We'll definitely want to have you back for that.
Excellent. Thanks. Would love to be back. Really appreciate you both. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for coming on the Vynora Effect. Talk to you soon, Anthony. Take care. And thank you, our listeners. Go check out Anthony Adkins, his LinkedIn. His links are in the description, and his amazing book. See you guys next time.
Excellent.
See you next time. And we thank you guys. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share this out and support Frankie's Podcast Network and more content from me and Alecia, because we have more people who are beautiful humans like Anthony that we must give a platform to. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Anthony and Alecia. It's been awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.